headquarters. It's time for Arnab Goswami on the debate. Arnab Goswami on the debate.
Hi there, welcome back. Niranjan and I picking up from where Shawan left. You know, we have been wondering through the day whether Trump has lost the war or he has lost the plot, Niranjan, or perhaps he has just lost interest. Twice in the last 48 hours.
Yes.
Or perhaps 72 hours. President Trump has tried, Niranjan, to sort of shift the onus slightly on Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War.
Yes.
Also, this leak that came out in the evening, Niranjan, which you broke off, which had a suggestion rather,
yes,
that it's not America's war, it's Israel's war, and Israel miscalculated. With J.D. Vance asking Netanyahu, did you have proper intelligence about what's happening on the ground in Tehran? Where's the revolution? Where is the revolt? Is it like that elusive WMD of the Iraq war that we have been looking for a revolt which has not happened? So essentially, what we are going to discuss tonight, Niranjan, is, are we looking at a war which is heading nowhere and Trump has lost interest?
Abhishek, you know, if it's one report, it may be a coincidence. 2, 3, but in the last 2 days, Abhishek, there have been at least 10 reports and we've collated it. Infighting within America, within the Trump administration, infighting within Israel.
Yeah.
Even the Israeli opposition and the Israeli chief of staff, appointed, by the way, by Netanyahu, saying that it's a very pathetic situation on the war front because even Israel says they are fighting a war on multiple fronts and that they have a depleting force. It's not looking good for Israel. It's not looking good for Donald Trump.
Not at all.
Interceptors running out. Tomahawks running out.
Yeah.
And I think we have a fantastic panel and analysts joining us. First up, here are the news developments of today and the big debate at 9 p.m.
Deep manpower setbacks. Prolonged multi-front war. Over 5,000 Israeli soldiers have been wounded and at least 19 killed since the war in West Asia began. And now a stark warning from Israel's top military commander.
אני רוצה לומר שאנחנו חסרים בצה"ל כ-15,000 חיילים, מתוכם בין 7,000 ל-8,000 לוחמים. אנחנו נדרשים למנעד משימות. מנעד המשימות יתרחב, שטח הפנים של המשימות יתרחב, הוא לא כמו שהוא היה בעבר. שטח הפנים ביהודה ושומרון יתרחב. החזית בלבנון, מרחב ההגנה הקדמי שאנחנו מייצרים, נדרש לעוד כוחות צה"ל, גם בעתיד, לאורך זמן.
The Israeli Defense Forces are running out of soldiers on ground, of ammunition and of drones in the sky. With mounting reliance on reserve capacities, the general raised 10 flags, from conscription law to extending mandatory service. Meanwhile, Israel's defense minister says the bombing will not stop.
ראש הממשלה בנימין נתניהו ואני הזהרנו את משטר הטרור האיראני להפסיק את ירי הטילים לעבר האוכלוסייה האזרחית בישראל. למרות האזהרות, הירי נמשך, ולכן תקיפות צה"ל באיראן יעלו מדרגה והתרחבו למטרות ותחומים נוספים שמסייעים למשטר בבניית והפעלת אמצעי הלחימה נגד אזרחי ישראל. הם ישלמו מחירים כבדים, הולכים וגוברים על פשע המלחמה הזה.
Israeli leader of opposition Yair Lapid has called this a security disaster. This development has come amid reports suggesting that even the United States is close to exhausting its stockpile of Tomahawk missiles. As if this was not enough, US Vice President J.D. Vance reportedly had a tough call with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu asking, where's the revolt in Iran? As fatigue and fracture builds on between Israel and the US, Iran says the end is just the beginning.
Iran has never sought war. Iranians are a peaceful, noble nation inheriting one of the richest civilizations on earth. Yet, they have demonstrated absolute resolve and determination to defend themselves against the brutal aggressors who know no boundary in perpetrating all sorts of crimes. A defense that shall persist as long as needed.
IRGC claims only a fraction of their military capacity has been used so far. The question is, with all these developments, is the Iran war out of control of President Trump?
Right, our first guest on the show this evening, Colonel Douglas Macgregor. He's a geopolitical risk advisor. He's a former senior advisor to the US Secretary of Defense, and he's joining us live from Washington, D.C. He's turned out to be, Abhishek, one of the biggest military analysts and critics, if I can call him that, of the Trump-Iran war. Colonel Macgregor, thank you for joining us once again here on Republic TV. My first question is to you. We've heard of a breaking news update this evening of J.D. Vance having a very heated conversation with Netanyahu, saying that Israel miscalculated the regime change assessment, perhaps trying to duck the blame to Tel Aviv. Is that how it's going down now?
I think we can say that the United States, and that is President Trump, has lost a strategic initiative. If you look at this current extension to a 2-week pause, which is effectively what it will be, that is about as genuine as printing Indian currency in Pakistan. This has nothing to do with peace. It has nothing to do with peace talks. This is all about replenishing our stocks of ammunition, the exotic missiles and rockets and so forth that we expended early on in this campaign. We think that we spent somewhere between $12 and $16 billion in one of the most intense air campaigns in American history in the first 3 or 4 days of the fight with Iran. So I think it's fair to say we're in a lot of trouble. There are certainly recriminations going back and forth. There is no doubt that President Trump has to assume responsibility for the fact that he listened first and foremost to the Israelis and certainly did not pay much attention to people here in the United States that warned him not to do what he's done.
Yeah. Are you suggesting that there were some people who wanted to not have this war and advised as such to the president, and he did not listen to them? Because we have not heard something like that, coming out of American reports.
Yes, I think so. Obviously, I've known him for a long time. And, I advised him when I last spoke with him not to do a lot of things, to end the war in Ukraine quickly. While I was working for him in 2020, I said, Iran is a potential strategic partner. We should not look upon them as the enemy and so forth. All of that fell on deaf ears. Remember, he surrounded himself with these New York City billionaires who are all very loyal to the Israeli agenda. And he took a lot of money from these people in order to be elected as president of the United States. So I think when he was elected, he knew that at some point he was going to have to deliver on the promises he made. So I don't think he was really fully apprised of what was going on. Iran, a nation of 93 million, half the size of India, is not going to surrender to anybody. There's no reason why they should. They can absorb a lot of punishment, and they have. And they've demonstrated a new way of war, the 21st century way of war, which is linking space-based intelligence and reconnaissance to numerous strike weapons all over the country, enabling them in the space of a few minutes to concentrate enormous firepower wherever they want to put it. That's why any talk right now about invading Iran is absurd. Any talk about seizing islands in the Persian Gulf is an invitation to disaster.
Yeah.
No one has to sit on those islands to defend them. They can attack them from numerous locations inside Iran.
You know,
Okay, go ahead.
because he was on the point of the missiles, Abhishek. There's a report and different reports coming out. I have one specific report, and because he's a war veteran and he knows a thing or two about these missiles, I have a report here with me, Colonel, and I'm going to read out a few details from this report. It's a UK a research think tank called RUSI, which has put out the report specifically on Israel. The Arrow 2 munitions depletion date projected 27th of March, which is today, which means they will have no more Arrow 2, Arrow 3 missiles. Defensive, the THAAD's projected depletion date 3rd of April 2026 as per the UK think tank. Offensive, the Blue Sparrow air-launched ballistic missile projected depletion date 5th of April 2026. David Sling Stunner projected depletion date 6th of April. Rampage supersonic missile projected depletion date 9th of April. And it goes on and on. What it tells you, and it corresponds, Abhishek and Colonel, with the pictures that are coming out of Tel Aviv. We don't see pictures of the Iron Dome or the interceptions happening anymore. There seems to be a real problem that Israel is facing.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the report. I read it. If anything, they're being generous in that report to all of us. Israel's position is extremely delicate right now. They have virtually no air and missile defense whatsoever. 8 out of every 10 missiles and virtually most so-called drones are penetrating without opposition. So Israel is really in very bad shape. Now, as far as we're concerned, we need to keep in mind that all of the very expensive radars that we had installed across the region have been destroyed, which means we have great difficulty picking up on a lot of these missiles that are shot at us until, frankly, they're almost on top of us. And then finally, remember that we're 7,000 miles away from the United States. So when you're replenishing your stocks, which is what is happening right now in the theater, the replenishment has to come from the United States, thousands of miles. Then it has to be loaded. It has to be loaded onto aircraft, loaded onto ships. All of this takes time, and that's what this pause is all about. And I think then there will be an attempt to launch what they hope will be a war-winning offensive. And I don't think it's going to turn out that way at all. I think this is something for which the Iranians have prepared for over 20 years.
And the Americans did not?
No, of course not. You know, our manufacturing base has shrunken dramatically. We don't have the capacity that we did 40 or 50 years ago to surge production. We're not in the same position as Russia and China right now militarily at all. I think we just grossly miscalculated. We assumed things that were untrue. We assumed that we could bully Iran. We assumed that Iran could be isolated. And I think we completely missed the boat on the economic catastrophe that we're creating globally. You're feeling the impact of this in India. You know that your citizens are lining up in order to fill their gas tanks, and that's no pleasure. You have a similar situation in Japan. This is happening in Europe. Now, the Russians, of course, are making more than $250 million a day more than they previously did. But the Russians and the Chinese both want an end to this because they see supply chains being destroyed. And if we press ahead with this next war-winning offensive, I think that will finish off all the oil infrastructure in the Persian Gulf. Because the Iranians have said very clearly, if you attack our infrastructure, our oil infrastructure, our desalinization plants, we will wipe out everything in the Gulf. This has got to stop. And President Trump has to recognize that whatever advice he got was bad. And he ought to fire everybody working for him right now in the White House.
Maybe there's some realization that's why this attempt to shift the onus on Israel or on Pete Hegseth. But Colonel, one interesting observation you made in your last stance, which was that the Iranian warfare this time has pivoted a lot on space-based intelligence. Now, so far as I know, they do not have satellites. Who's providing them this space-based intelligence?
The Chinese and the Russians. And as a result, anything that moves within 1,000 miles of Iran is immediately identified and picked up. And that information is linked near simultaneously to all of the strike systems on the ground inside Iran. Russia and China have no interest in seeing Iran destroyed by us. They don't have any interest in seeing the society disintegrate. No one in the region wants Iran to become a basket case that the Israelis and Americans can run in, take over the oil fields in their wildest imagination, and essentially divide Iran into smaller bits and pieces, driving millions of people as refugees into Syria, Turkey, Arabia, and ultimately Europe. None of this is desirable. So again, everybody miscalculated because I think Trump listened far, far too much to the Israelis. And the Israelis promised a short, decisive war.
Yeah.
Now they're paying the ultimate price.
You mentioned the Israelis. Look at the situation in Israel, Abhishek. And Colonel, I'm sure you've gone through these reports of the Israeli Chief of Staff, Eyal Zamir. He's warned that the IDF could collapse in on itself due to the shortage of soldiers. They're
fatigue
fighting
that's building.
Fatigue. And the multi-war...
Maybe not as many casualties, but the sheer fatigue of having been in a war. Remember, not for the last 1 month, for the last 2 years, 3 years.
Well, of course, keep something in mind. We don't know the true numbers of casualties for ourselves as well as for the Israelis. No one in Washington or Tel Aviv or Jerusalem is interested in telling anybody the truth right now. And this is not new. We've always slow-rolled casualties in all our wars. But right now, I suspect that we have all sustained far more casualties than we're admitting. As far as the Israelis are concerned, they've depended very heavily on air power for their military strength. They've always had a small army, a small regular force augmented by hundreds of thousands of reservists. This can't work over time. They're running out of steam, not just people, but they're exhausted. They have had lots of losses. But I think the Israelis bet heavily that we would be their infantry as well as their artillery and their air power. That hasn't worked out well.
Yeah. And domestically, both Trump and Netanyahu are now facing this unique situation where there is massive opposition. Republicans themselves questioning Donald Trump. Saw a few of those comments come in. People are unhappy. In Israel, the opposition is questioning Netanyahu. By the way, where is Netanyahu? Nobody knows. I saw a report today, Abhishek, Colonel, that mentioned that maybe his flight was spotted in Berlin. He's been in Berlin for the last 2 weeks. I don't know where he is, but it appears extremely shady at the moment.
Yeah, you're right. I have no idea where he is. I would be careful, though, of the American situation. Go back to President Trump's State of the Union address, and when he talked about stopping Iran from having a nuclear weapon and taking whatever action was required, he got a standing ovation from virtually everybody in Congress, both Democrats and Republicans, because they've all effectively been bought by the Israel lobby. And the billionaires that back the Israel lobby have bought up these candidates. And as a result, I have almost no sympathy whatsoever for Congress. They're as culpable in all of this nonsense as is the president. But the president, if he wants to get out of this mess, should not continue to do what doesn't work. Remember the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again in the expectation that you're going to get a different result. This next war-winning assault is not going to win the war. What he ought to do at this point is fire the people around him, step forward and say, look, I was wrong. This was a mistake. I'm disengaging. If he were willing to do that, then large numbers of people in the world, I think, leaders would come and assist him to mediate an end to this tragedy. That's one of the reasons that I mentioned Prime Minister Modi previously. But there are others that could come in as well, people that all sides could trust. That's what we desperately need. We don't need an extension of this war.
Yes. Couple of last questions, last two, and I'll take one, Abhishek, and you can take one on Kargil Island. I wanted to ask Colonel McGregor on, and you can take that, and I'll take the one on Pakistan, because you've spoken about Pakistan. You know, this joke of a country called Pakistan wants to mediate on the war. What's happening on that front? What are you hearing? Are they really mediating? Is there a mediation at all?
You know, I have my doubts. I don't know. I mean, at this point, I don't think President Trump would turn away anybody who offered help. But whether or not that means anything, I mean, he says we're holding talks. What I've seen in the past is that the CIA and Mossad will pick people out of a government, people at levels below the senior leadership, and start conversing with them in the hopes that they can be co-opted or bribed And ultimately, that'll help us win whatever we want to win. That's not going to work with Iran. The Mossad was already in there and bought people up. It
they're
didn't
acting
work.
as a courier.
When he says he's talking to someone in Iran, who is he talking to?
Yeah. Well, that's the whole
Ghalibaf.
point. None of us really knows. And that's why I think the intelligence agencies are talking to generals or colonels or somebody somewhere in the hopes that this is going to be a breakthrough. I think it's just nonsense. I think you can't believe much of what's coming out of Washington right now. Everyone is desperate, even though we project this air of confidence. The truth is, behind the scenes, the president is quite desperate. He recognizes at this stage that he was lied to, and he made some bad calls. Well, the only way to get out of it is to admit that and disengage and ask for help from others. That's the only way. But at the moment, the plan is to do what I said before, be insane, double down on what has failed in the past and hope that it works. It's not going to happen. I don't care how many little islands they try to seize in the Persian Gulf. You put people on an island that's perhaps 14 or 15 square kilometers and a few intermediate range ballistic missiles or tactical ballistic missiles and drones, and everybody on the island is dead. This is not 1944. This is not 1984. This is 2026. Warfare is different. It's changed.
Well, it is 1984 in the sense that war is peace. But Colonel McGregor, my question is, if the weaponry is depleted, as you suggest, if the leadership is so clueless as to where to take this next, how then are you saying that the United States is going to double down? There are no weapons, there is no direction. How do you double down? You can't.
Well, that's why you have a break right now. This is why you've got this phony pause. It's not for peace talks. It's to replenish the stocks. So I think they're bringing in whatever we still have in the United States, sitting on the shelves, and bringing it out to the theater. That's what's happening to the Navy and the Air Force. And at the same time, whenever air campaigns fail historically, we then turn to the use of ground forces. That's what happened to us in Vietnam with Rolling Thunder. I went through this during the Kosovo air campaign that lasted 78 days. And by 60 days into the campaign, it was obvious it wasn't working. And there were tremendous efforts to try and press President Clinton to commit ground forces. Ultimately, he refused to, and instead we managed to bribe the Russians to pull the plug on Milosevic in Serbia and end the campaign. This is a dumb idea. Anytime you go into any fight and you take the approach that you're going to use air power only because you don't want casualties, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Colonel McGregor, you just gave, half a dozen of the list of 83 attempts or successes that the United States has had on regime change, this time perhaps failing, But I think we are not yet over with the conversation. We'll continue to have that. Thank you so much for joining us tonight as we broaden this debate with other panelists on our program.
Yes.
Niranjan.
Thank you. Thank you, Colonel.
Well, thank you. Good luck.
Good luck. Thank you very much. Okay. We have Rasa Juknevichin. She's a Lithuanian politician, a member of European Parliament since 2019. She's live with us this evening, along with Dr. Wael Awad, who's a senior journalist and a West Asia strategist. And defending Donald Trump's policy this evening is Richie Greenberg. He's a political commentator and a former Republican mayoral candidate, live from San Francisco. Rayan Amiri, founding leader of the Conservative Party of Iran, in exile, live from Istanbul this evening. And Angie Wong is a Republican strategist, live from Miami. If I can go to Rasa first. She's a member of the European Parliament, and Europeans are extremely upset, angry, being called names. In fact, Abhishek, Donald Trump put out that post saying that NATO has done nothing to help America, cowardly, etc. And you had Marco Rubio also, say that they've been there for NATO and NATO's never been there for them. He spoke of the Ukraine war. Rasa, what's your response to the Americans as this war seems to sort of get out of Trump's hands?
I cannot comment that it's out of Trump's hands or not out of Trump's hands because, I can't tell what's on the president's mind. We are watching what's going on, and the war in Europe don't forget that we are at war. I mean, Russia's war against Ukraine, and it's very bloody war. And now it's almost everything on our shoulders. We are supporting Ukraine and trying to protect Europe together with Ukrainians from the threats of Putin regime, which is really very, very dangerous for us, especially like me. I am speaking now from Lithuania. We are next to Belarus, we are next to Russia, together with Latvia, Estonia, and we are exposed very much in this war, Russia's war against Ukraine. So now we have another war, which is, by the way, interconnected. I mean the war in Middle East, because Iran is the main proxy of Russia in the war against Ukraine, one of the proxies, and this is axis of evil, as we say, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and also China behind, is big concern for all democracies globally, not only like European Union. So look, myself, I can say that I would like to see success of the United States and Israel and other countries in the Middle East who are threatened now and who are facing Iran as maybe the biggest instability source in the region. So this is what I can say, and of course situation is not easy. I am afraid, I am so much concerned that the authority of the United States could be damaged if it will be not successful war, and it is very, very dangerous because dictatorships are waiting for this the most. Unfortunately, I am not a big supporter of President Trump. Unfortunately, we see what we see in Russia because of this Russian war, because he is supporting some very strange people who are trying to destroy European Union from inside, like Orban and others. So a lot of problems in one combination, and the war in the Middle East is also part of it.
It's an interesting nuance you have brought in, Ms. Rasa, that while you are not sure whether this war is being won or lost by the United States, you would rather want that US do something about the Ukraine war, and you are not confident that Trump is on your side in this situation. But Dr. Awad, with whatever developments that have taken place over the last 24 hours and that we are discussing, the kind of fracture we are seeing in Israel, the kind of fatigue, a message of fatigue that's coming out of Israel, the sense of directionlessness that's coming out of the United States, first a 5-day ceasefire, then a 10-day ceasefire, then somehow the war continues, then reports of J.D. Vance asking Netanyahu, what's up with that revolt? What's your sense from there? You would be talking to people in Tehran. What's the sense there in Tehran? Are they getting a sense that they have already won? They have managed this war of attrition well, and that it's only a matter of time before the opponents blink?
Well, to tell you the truth, for the last 4 weeks, we only managed 4 or 5 WhatsApp messages we got from the families there. And what we are getting feedback from there, Abhishek, that they have been sleeping in the bathrooms because the neighboring houses are getting flattened because of the Israelis' attack. Many of the civilians have killed. But the second part which we have received, that many of the Iranian families, especially the women, have donated their gold to the government and told them, we wanted to come out winning this war. We will never surrender to the Americans, to the Israelis. Having said that, I would say that they are resilient. They are refusing to surrender, and they are continuing bombardment. And Iran have the land, have the history, have the power to fire back at the United States. And the United States, lacking the strategic ambiguity, have led to this mess in this region. And that's why we all know that the United States have been dragged into this war. It is unlawful, and the Americans were not at any stage dangerous and in danger to this war. So therefore, I think the Iranian having the upper hand currently, and definitely the United States have to find some sort of a triumph exit maybe he will go for continuous bombardment on Iran and pull out and he say, I won this war. But at the end of the day, Iranian will dictate in terms what they wanted to end this war on their own terms, because they said to the Israelis and the American, if you started this war, we will end it in our own terms.
Okay, Richie, you think, where is the revolution in Tehran? Is the American public asking the question that apparently Vice President Vance asked of Netanyahu? Is there a sense that the Israelis led the US up the garden path and that there was some error of judgment insofar as intelligence is concerned?
I don't think there is any wrong judgment, because the objective of Israel is to terminate the terminal power in the region, Iran. But they haven't chosen a bigger hamburger than they can digest. For this reason, they are unable to digest the
Dr. Nawaz,
let him
talk. Dr. Nawaz, that question was for Richie.
Richie.
Hi. Okay. So here in America, and obviously I am very attuned to what is going on, both from the left-wing media like CNN and the Washington Post, all the way over to the center-right like Fox News, Newsmax, and elsewhere. And I really need to make this point here that there is no mass protest here in America. We do not have anti-war rallies that you might have seen, decades ago. The prosecution of this of the conflict, of the very measured attacks against the IRGC is popular. It's not 100% backed, and those who don't back it are the left wing and the Democrats. And we see that in our on TV and in the news. We see this in discussions in Congress. Who is it that is supporting this and who is against it? And I need to also just quickly, this whole program in the last 40 minutes or so that we've been live here has been completely negative, has been against Trump, against the United States. And I think it's sending the wrong message, because what we're seeing, what I feel, and what other analysts are saying is a very different message, that actually it is Iran, the IRGC, that is desperate, that is losing grip and is about to be defeated.
We're not getting that sense. Sorry, Richie, to be interjecting, but I mean, you can answer me. Answer the question with this little thought from my side that, we here in India are closely watching reports and media in the United States, left or right. We are closely watching media and talking to people in Israel, left and right. And there is, of course, some sense of information shadow in Iran, but still we are talking to people there, and all the reports that are emerging, there is no sense that Iran is capitulating. I mean, President Trump has said at least 5 times he wants ceasefire. The Iranians have not said that.
Right. Well, they're not going to, because first of all, you have this ruthless regime that is in power there, and they're controlling all the messaging. They have their police out there that are quashing any dissent whatsoever, and the internet is down. So who knows what it is that's really happening on the ground there? So I dismiss that as well. And that just lends more to the point that I was saying, that I firmly believe that this is being presented incorrectly over the last 40 minutes or so, that the United States is not running out of time, that Trump is not looking to find some way to exit this. The Israelis are, of course, they're working very, very hard there, and they're actually calling up more reserves, not because of Iran per se, but because of what the Hezbollah north of the northern border there in Israel is causing quite a bit of problems, and that's where a lot of their attention is being turned. So I disagree with majority of what's being said.
I'm sure. Even J.D. Vance, was feeling the same when he pulled up Netanyahu, and we had that statement there. You can read it. It's not just being reported by the American media like Axios, but even the Israeli media is reporting on a call between J.D. Vance and Netanyahu, where J.D. Vance reportedly questioned Netanyahu on the assessment of overthrowing the regime. questioned the entire strategy, questioned the Israeli assessment. That, to you, could also be negative. J.D. Vance was being negative. And let me tell you what else was negative. What else rather is negative, in your view. Angie, you can take that. Israeli opposition leaders also questioning Netanyahu on the war without a strategy. The Israeli chief of staff appointed by Netanyahu also saying that there is fatigue and there could be disaster if the war continues. Would you also call that negative, Angie?
You know, all my years of covering President Trump and now his administration, I will always tell you there is a message that is put out to the world media and other things are happening behind the scenes. And I think that's why a lot of news media can't really interpret this administration because it is the chaos president. President Trump is the art of the deal president. He works in chaos. So it may look like chaos to us. But if you understand the strategy behind this, it's actually quite brilliant. J.D. Vance putting out a message saying, well, you know, there's fatigue and Israel, what are you doing? It's a great distraction because you know what we're actually doing. If you're watching what President Trump is saying and you can interpret what he's saying, he's looking for uranium on the ground. He is moving ground troops into the region to search for the uranium because then he can finally say, mission accomplished. Until the uranium is found, we're not sure that this mission is over. That is the ultimate goal from day one on February 28th. And we haven't finished it yet. Time is on the side of President Trump. He doesn't need to leave anytime soon. There's absolutely no urgency to do so, but he is buying time. We're creating the chaos for him. So if you do understand that we're part of that ecosystem of buying time for U.S. troops to go on the ground, then you understand the game. Otherwise, it looks like he has no plans.
I'm not so sure because the numbers...
Can I take... Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I wanted to bring the numbers up with Angie because she had a point. She said he's getting troops on the ground. Of course, they've been there in the last 4 to 5 days. We hear getting ready to perhaps move in. We don't know where. Karg Island, people are talking about it, speculating. But wanted to talk about, a fact that is being largely underreported, Abhishek. First, there was, a restriction on beaming pictures out of Tel Aviv. We were told that there were restrictions, even on journalists, to avoid putting out pictures of huge damages. Initially, there were pictures of interceptions of Iron Dome in action. But the last few days, all the videos that are coming in, even from the Israeli media, indicating damages on the ground and widespread damages. And I think it all adds up to what really is the ground situation. And that is depleting ammunition, right? Largely unreported, right? You could call that chaos, Angie. But we are hearing that Tomahawks...
Can I jump in? Can I respond really quickly on this?
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have on my phone the same app that they use in Israel. Okay?
Right.
And what it does is it alerts the citizens anytime there's an incoming missile, and it tells them get to a bomb shelter ASAP. And it's very accurate, and it's a great, unfortunately it has to exist. But there has been a very, very, very marked lull, and there's no missiles coming into Israel. They're not coming into Tel Aviv. Iran is not shooting them in. So that's why you don't see these reports coming out of Tel Aviv or other parts of Israel, as you just said, of any damage. It's not because it's being censored. It's because there's no missiles that are coming in.
Okay, Ryan, can I get Ryan into this? Ryan,
yes.
Well, what's with this revolt that was promised once Ayatollah Khamenei is eliminated? I mean, it seems like the elusive WMDs of the Iraq war. I mean, there is no revolt on the ground in Tehran.
Look, first and foremost, I'm very surprised when seeing that the media, including yours, are equating the Islamist regime in Iran that killed just a few weeks ago, on January 8th and January 9th, the Ayatollah dictator, Ali Khamenei, has killed off more than tens of thousands of Iranian protesters, and you pretend as if it never happened.
No, nobody pretended. Nobody pretended. We reported on it, my friend.
Some of your guests pretend, they say, oh, there is war, there are civilians are getting killed. No, they are not civilians are getting killed. They are affiliates and associates of the IRGC that are getting killed.
Sorry,
and no one cares. No one cares about Iran. The people, look, let me finish. The people inside Iran celebrated the death of the Ayatollah because for 47 years, they have destroyed our lives. I fled my country. Why? Because as a person who's not a Muslim, I left Islam. I cannot live inside my country. That Iran is called the land of Aryans, not the land of Islamists. We have lost our country to Islamists that conquered and occupied our country, and you pretend, these Ayatollahs have a right to exist? No, the people inside Iran don't want a theocracy. You know why?
But that's the question. That's the question I asked, Ryan. Then where is the revolt? Why are not people coming out and throwing out this regime?
You don't want clerics in charge of India, do you?
No, I do. It's not about me wanting anything for Iran. It's for the Iranians to decide, and the Iranians are not coming out on the streets. Is the question I'm asking. It's proving to me that elusive WMD of Iraq.
Look, let me finish. Whenever they took to the streets, the regime killed them off en masse. Just recently, the regime killed them off in tens of thousands. And you're telling why the Iranian people are not coming to the streets again? Because this regime is a totalitarian regime. And if you read what a totalitarian regime is, it is a regime that the limit of violence is infinite. They kill as much as people to remain in charge.
Dr. Awad, you have folks there back in Tehran and other parts of Iran. Are you getting a sense that their people are being killed and named by the regime so that they don't not come out on the streets?
I have just fled Iran on February 1st. What are you talking about? You gaslighting.
Against the economic harsh of the Iranian. There is no doubt about it. There was a killing in both sides. The Iranian lost even the civilian and the military. More than 3,750 people were killed. But I can assure you, not a single Iranian, except the Pahlavi, he wanted to see the American killing Iranian. No Iranian wanted to see being killed, neither by the government, nor by the American, nor by the Israelis. And now the American and Israeli attacking Iraqi nuclear site in Iran, and the radiation will kill more Iranian. This is what the Iranian expecting from the democracy that they have already templated during the 1953 Mossadegh, when they removed him from power and they brought the Shah of Iran. Does anybody ask these questions? If there is definitely there is a political crisis in Iran, it is for the Iranians to decide.
Ryan, you got to respond to that.
Let me answer.
People outside Iran have no clue what's going on inside the country. Because
let me answer that.
Look, I'm right. Look, from the people inside. So how do
you are telling an Iranian what he wants?
He's also an Iranian, by the way.
I traveled to Iran more than you traveled.
You are not an Iranian. You're not an Iranian. I'm 30 years old. Iranian youth, they do not want a theocracy. You know why? Because no reasonable.
Ryan,
wants clerics in charge of the country.
Ryan, you're given your age, and that gives also something, which is that perhaps you are not familiar with the Mossadegh era and what happened at that time that Dr. Awad is talking about.
Do you know who was the prime minister before Mossadegh? Name that person. You don't know history of Iran. I know well. That was called Prime Minister
Razmarov. Before you were born even. You were not even born. You don't understand the system. You lived outside the country. You have nothing linked to Iran. Iranians are very much nationalist. They understand.
Okay, one by one.
Let me finish.
Okay. Dr. Awad, coming to you. Let Ryan finish.
And the word of shames that they wanted a foreign intervention in their country. No Iranian wanted that. There is a Persian Empire, and you know it. If you are a Persian blood, speak like a Persian. Speak like an Iranian. Don't speak like an American narrative or a Western who claim your mind.
What are you talking about?
I have there. I understand Iran more than you.
Can I just take you?
Let Ryan complete. Yeah, Ryan complete.
Look. You constantly talk about Mossadegh, not knowing most of the Americans who talk about Mossadegh are far-left lunatics pushing this propaganda that he was a democratic guy. If he was a democratic guy, once the previous prime minister was called General Razmarov. General Razmarov was a secular modernizer who got assassinated by Islamists. The Islamists who were allied with Mossadegh, Ayatollah Khashani. Remember that name. No one of you knew these names. So the only name you know is Mossadegh. You know, we are fed up with this far-left lunatic propaganda against the Shah of Iran.
Because you scratch your hand, you find America written under your arm. Because you are part of the CIA agents who have...
Let me finish. Free speech. Free speech. Let me finish. Free speech, you fascist piece of shit.
Your father, he must be an army officer.
1 second. Dr. Awad and Ryan. Dr. Awad and Ryan, for a second. Pull back a second. Pull back. Catch your breath. 1 second.
Let me finish. Mossadegh praised the assassination of the previous prime minister of Iran. That is recorded in history in every account. And he was praising the
Can we talk about today and not history? 1 second.
Violence. Right. He was not democratic. He was not democratic. He
okay,
was
Ryan.
Okay, you made a point.
Ryan made a point.
Yeah.
And he said those civilians killed in Iran were linked to the IRGC. By the way, just to set the record straight so that Ryan also realizes, and those backing Donald Trump, we covered the hijab protests.
Yeah.
We had a reporter in Tehran when the hijab protest took place. We questioned the regime back then.
Yeah.
What you call the regime. Calm down, brother. Brother, hear me out. Calm down. Secondly, when the protest took place a few months back, we reported on that. And we reported how the regime under Khamenei had covered up the truth and shot people dead. Yes, we did cover that as well. But none of that justifies the killing of young children, Ryan.
Yeah,
160 children who were bombed.
Who says that? Why are you gaslighting?
Oh like my God!
Just look, look. Why the people took to
it was a tomahawk,
diary?
man.
Ask yourself.
It was a tomahawk.
Not told, not an Iranian. I checked. I doubt your nationalities.
You are decontextualizing what happened during January 8th and January 9th. I'm going to tell that to your audience that don't know. Look, the people on January 8th did not come to the streets out of a vacuum. They came after there was a call to protest by one man, and that man is Reza Shah Pahlavi II.
Okay, so where are all these protesters,
He called on people. Let me finish. He called on the Iranian people to take to the street and rise up against the Ayatollah regime, and they did en masse, as you reported. So that was after a call by this man, Reza Shah Pahlavi, and you didn't cover that. You fascist. You didn't cover that.
Okay, no name calling. Guys, please just pull back.
You don't care about people.
We can have a decent.
No name calling.
We were having a very decent debate until Ryan.
I think the only point Dr. Awad was making was, Ryan, the only point Dr. Awad was making was that while whatever happens in Iran is for the Iranians to decide, that does not give the Israelis or the Americans the right to intervene and carry out these kind of bombings and strikes and killings.
The Iranian people.
Iranian people of Iran can
not have an army.
No, but my question to Richie. We are coming to the end of the debate. Richie. Yes, what if this is actually not about Netanyahu or about Ayatollah or about Mohammed bin Salman or about Fox and Friends? It's just about that president. It's been 28 days, for God's sake, only on one issue. President Trump perhaps is bored.
Who lost? Where is
President Trump is bored.
Trump is intact, but Ayatollah is dead. Ayatollah was the commander-in-chief of the regime. Where is he? He's dead. So you're telling me that Trump lost? Trump is intact. He's alive. But the Ayatollah is the one who's dead. What are you talking about?
Then end the war, man.
You're living in a parallel universe.
What are you talking about? God.
My question was to Richie. Richie, is President Trump bored? That's why he's saying, okay, fine, let's have a ceasefire.
Where is Mustafa?
No.
Richie.
Okay, Trump is certainly not bored. That is a left-wing talking point. He actually is doing fairly well, as I said. You know, Iran, as we know from 1979 and onwards, is, an ideologically, it's a ruthless, absolute fascist methods.
Yes.
They are the ones that over these decades has been targeting America, targeting the West, targeting Israel, targeting Jews. And so this was something that has just come to a head. And with the tentacles of the Iranian regime going through Lebanon and Iraq and Syria and Hamas and Venezuela until recently, That is the problem that we are facing now, is how they have, instead of being a concentrated one small area of the world, they have sent out their tentacles, and that is the problem. That's what we're fighting ultimately. That is the control of arms, control of training of insurgent troops, control of oil, control of drugs, and control of money. And that's where this is all from.
When the Iranian revolution came and
just
the
a second.
Iraqi
Dr.
government was pushed
And Iran is showing clear signs, the IRGC is showing clear signs that they are desperate and failing.
Dr. Avad.
Wake up, you have killed more than 38 million people, your president, one after the others.
1 minute.
Shame to speak about supporting
I
an
have no idea
American
what you're
president.
talking about.
Okay, Dr. Avad, 1 second.
Absolutely no idea what you think
I
you're
want to
talking
say,
about.
I want to say something to Richie, and I want to also bring in Rasa. Rasa and Angie have barely spoken. I want to bring them in.
Both sides.
No,
10% both sides is justified in a way because it's a war state.
No, but Abhishek, I find it ridiculous that Richie just said that Iran is the fountainhead of terror, etc. He's shaking hands with Pakistan, for God's sake, man. I mean, you guys are shaking hands with the guys harboring the world's biggest terrorists. Osama bin Laden was found in Abbottabad in Pakistan. What are you talking about? You must be kidding yourself. But I want to get into Rasa. I won't get into that because I don't have enough time. But that's the biggest joke. That's the biggest joke. I want to go across to Rasa and Angie. I'm going to Rasa. Rasa, do you want this war to end? We don't want this war. It's not our war, but we are suffering too. Our LPG supplies are hit. Gas supplies are hit. Our stock markets are down. People are losing money. We don't want the war. It's not our war.
Look, I don't want to be on the side questioning Trump. I am not against Trump or the United States or Israel. They are fighting, not the first time, against this axis of evil, like part of it is Iran regime. And I fully understand the emotions of Iranian people and here as well. But I also share the information which is correct, that Iranian regime just recently, a few weeks ago, killed more than 30,000 its own people in their country.
What is your source of information?
Look, I was listening to you.
What's your source of information?
Iran regime is the main provider of support to Hamas, to Hezbollah, to Houthis, to all those terrible organizations. They are threatening Israel's right to live in this region. So it's evil.
In our territories, why they're occupying Syria?
Evil. I was born in Soviet. I was born in Soviet Union. I know what does it mean dictatorship, and I would be very happy if my grandmother would not be deported to Siberia, and somebody like Americans would be able to come then and liberate us, help us to be normal European state. So today we have this challenge. But my question, of course, and I can say I can leave as I understand, despite that I am very critical on Trump politics towards Russia, towards what Ukraine, but I am today supportive to have success to the United States. I am in favor of success of the United States, because if the United States and Israel will lose this war, that will be disaster for all other.
The objectives are met.
If that is the case, Angie, last word, Angie.
If objectives are met.
Okay, is the war, if Trump, you say he's a master strategist, then in that case, is the war going to escalate? Because this is for sure not the end game. What's the end game?
Well, I can't tell you exactly because I'm not privy to those information. I can tell you what happened this week. We started the week with peace talks where there was no natural leader for Iran. The foreign minister of Iran didn't even know that he was negotiating with the U.S. So it tells me there is no natural leadership there right now. The Ayatollah has not been seen. So now we're at Friday, right? Yeah. And what just came out about an hour ago is that the White House is expecting Iranians' counter proposal to the 15-point plan that Trump had put out to somebody.
I think there would be,
right,
there would be a response. There would be a response.
But it's coming out around 4 p.m. today, which is exactly when the U.S. markets close. So understand, this entire week, what we've been seeing, the media chaos that we've created, it was all about calming the markets,
Angie,
because it was on fire.
Okay, let's see what happens. I think they're waiting for the markets to close. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this debate here this Friday evening on Republic TV. Arnab will be back on Monday. But
thanks for watching.
Developments over the weekend, so we'll stay live. Thanks for watching.
Time for a quick breather. Arnab will be right back with the debate.
Powered by Century Ply Club Prime. Raho befikar.
Hello ladies. आपके लिए है ये कंफर्टेबल सोफा, गर्मा गर्म चाय और वाईफाई। आराम फरमाइए, क्योंकि हमारा लेटेस्ट लिनन फैब्रिक कलेक्शन है ही ऐसा। वो क्या है ना, इन्हें देखने में और दिखाने में थोड़ा वक्त लगेगा। बंदों को लिनन पसंद है तो पसंद है। लिनन बाय अरविंद।
Amity has been ranked among the top universities globally for producing the most employable graduates by the Times Higher Education UK. Yet another testimony to Amity's excellent placement record.
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद यही तो है इसकी खास बात। वाओ मम्मा, क्या स्वाद है? अरे मेरे राजा, सबका राजा आरती और मसाला। प्यास बुझाए, ठंडक लाए, सबको भाए जीरा से। MTH का जलजीरा जीरा से।
जीरा से असली रिफ्रेशिंग, असली स्वाद, असली मजा।
MTH।
आर प्योर सूजी पास्ता, उबालो, मिलाओ और खाओ।
8 minutes. Time for a quick breather. Arnab will be right back with the debate.
Hello ladies. आपके लिए है ये कंफर्टेबल सोफा, गर्मा गर्म चाय और वाईफाई। आराम फरमाइए, क्योंकि हमारा लेटेस्ट लिनन फैब्रिक कलेक्शन है ही ऐसा। वो क्या है ना, इन्हें देखने में और दिखाने में थोड़ा वक्त लगेगा। बंदों को लिनन पसंद है तो पसंद है। लिनन बाय अरविंद।
Amity has been ranked among the top universities globally for producing the most employable graduates by the Times Higher Education UK. Yet another testimony to Amity's excellent placement record.
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद यही तो है इसकी खास बात। वाओ मम्मा, क्या स्वाद है? अरे मेरे राजा, सबका राजा आरती और मसाला।
रानी, इस घर में कुछ है जो टूटता नहीं।
ये पिलर कभी नहीं टूटेगा। रुंगटा स्टील TMT से बना।
रुंगटा नहीं तो घर स्ट्रॉन्ग नहीं। रुंगटा स्टील TMT बाद एकदम सॉलिड।
चमकी चाट से क्या बना है?
सैंडविच, लस्सी और छाछ।
Powered by Century Ply Club Prime. रहो बेफिकर।
जब अपना कोई मूव किसी को मूव करता है ना यार, फील आ जाती है।
भाई तू अपना है, तेरा सफर मुझे भी करना है। तूने प्रूव कर दिखाया यार, एनीबॉडी कैन ड्रीम।
मुझे लगा मैं नहीं, पूरा का पूरा मूवमेंट चल रहा है।
Breathable fabrics, awesome comfort, effortless style, AD from the house of Arvind.
आर प्योर सूजी पास्ता, उबालो, मिलाओ और खाओ।
8 मिनट में तैयार।
क्या टेस्ट है, सबका राजा आर प्योर मसाला। चमकी चाट से क्या बना है?
आलू चाट या फ्रूट चाट।
स्वाद बढ़ाए चमकी चाट।
क्या बात है? स्वादिष्ट पकोड़े और परेशान। अरे चमकी चाट है इसकी जान।
असली स्वाद सिर्फ चंकी चाट।
हम धीरज के साथ
संयम के साथ
From the Republic Media Network headquarters, it's time for the debate.
Hello and welcome. You're watching the debate with me, Shavan Sen. I'm filling in for Editor-in-Chief Arnab Goswami. Tonight on the debate, we are focusing on what's really happening in West Asia. Are we really looking at an abrupt end? Is President Trump looking for an off-ramp? All this and much more on the debate tonight. On the show tonight, Trump extends deadline for striking Iranian energy plants. Is Trump's military pause a strategic deception? At 8:30 tonight, battle to reopen Strait of Hormuz as Pentagon prepares a three-phase plan to open the strait. And at 9 p.m. is the war out of Trump's control now. Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu face domestic pressure as Israeli general warns of depleting army. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. With the war now in its 28th day, one sentiment is being discussed more than ever before, and that is whether America can be trusted at all. Time and again, Washington has made multiple promises only to walk away when it suited them. Now let's take a look at America's track record. America's deja vu, as we are calling it, and why America cannot be trusted. And the first comes in from Vietnam. In January 1973, the United States signed the Paris Peace Accords with South Vietnam, promising to withdraw its troops within 60 days and to respond strongly if at all North Vietnam violated the ceasefire. But what really happened? Because North America launched its final offensive in 1975, the US did not return to help South Vietnam. Instead, abandoned it. Now let's take a look at what really happened in Iraq in the 1990s. Under President Bill Clinton, the US repeatedly confronted Saddam Hussein over weapons inspections. In December 1998, after Iraq basically blocked UN inspectors, the United States of America launched what was called Operation Desert Fox. The goal was to degrade Saddam Hussein's weapons program and military capacity. US contained Saddam at the time by curtailing Iraq's nuclear program, eventually killing him back in December 2006. And everyone knows about what really happened with Iraq when this entire narrative was all about WMD. Now that never happened. Take a look at what happened in Afghanistan. That is back in February 2020. The Trump administration basically signed the Doha Agreement with the Taliban, the same Taliban against whom they began the entire war. They promised a full withdrawal of all American and NATO forces by May 2021 in exchange for Taliban counterterrorism guarantees. The Afghan government, America's ally, was not even at the table. In August 2021, Kabul fell and the Afghan government collapsed. America once again abandoned its ally and left the country under Taliban rule. Now, these are not just isolated cases, viewers. In each, the United States of America has given multiple assurances of support, set deadlines, and then withdrew. Classic American style. It's a trait of the Americans to say one thing and do the other. Now, look at the ongoing conflict with Iran. President Trump has tasked or has been talking about a military pause. His administration sends a 15-point proposal through mediators calling for Iran to halt the nuclear enrichment, remove the uranium stocks and curb missiles. Trump has repeatedly said talks are going very well and that Iran wants to make a deal so badly. In fact, he says Iranians are begging. Yet on the ground, America is basically reinforcing. They're basically making all the troop deployments. USS Tripoli, an amphibious assault ship with thousands of Marines and F-35B jets is heading towards this region. Additional Marines and troops from the 82nd Airborne Division are basically deploying. That's not de-escalation. Ladies and gentlemen, what kind of de-escalation requires more military mobilization? Is Trump essentially building options for more pressure? Trump has now extended his own deadline not once, but twice. He first threatened to destroy Iran's power plants if the strait did not reopen within 48 hours. He then extended the deadline for another 5 days. Then on 26th of March, he granted yet another 10-day extension as per the Iranian government's request. And that too, he essentially says that this was all happening because the Iranians wanted some sort of a deal. Till date, we do not know with whom exactly is the Americans really negotiating at this point in time, because they say that they have obliterated their entire military leadership. Not just that, they've obliterated their Air Force, their Navy, everyone is over. So who exactly are they really talking to? Who exactly is representing Iran right now? Now, this is a statement that has been made by President Trump many a times. But the question here, is it because there is growing pressure on President Trump? And is there a larger picture that many of us are missing? Because some reports essentially suggest that all of this was basically being done in order to perhaps help a lobby. Is it the oil mafia, as many called it? And the fact of the matter is that even today, last night, he said that Iranians are willing to be on the negotiating table. They want a deal. But today, we are told that there is another deadline that has been given. This time, it's 10 days. 10 days as to what he exactly wants to do. Trump is clearly not dictating the terms now. It is Iran that is dictating the terms. And just look at what President Trump had to say just about a few days ago and how things have changed so very rapidly.
This is a very volatile world, and the military equipment, the power of some of this weaponry is unthinkable. You don't even want to know about it. Oh, you could end this thing in 2 seconds if you wanted to. But
or we can take a stop and make a little journey into the Middle East and eliminate a big problem. And Pete, I think you were the first one to speak up. And you said, let's do it, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
Pete didn't want it to be settled. These guys are doing a great job. That's a good attitude, though, Tom, right? They were not interested in settlement. They were interested in just winning this thing. They are begging to work out a deal. I don't know if we'll be able to do that. I don't know if we're willing to do that. They should have done that 4 weeks ago. They should have done it 2 years ago. Or they should have done it when we first came into office, because 2 years ago they had free reign under Biden, Sleepy Joe.
Now, this is some side of weakness from America, because Trump is just giving mixed signals to the world of what exactly is he really planning to do in the Middle East. Is he talking about winding down the war and simultaneously ramping up naval and marine presence in the region, when America basically promises strong backing or quick resolutions? Partners have basically learned to basically watch around, because Israelis say that they are not going to stop the operation. In fact, it turns out that some of American allies in the Gulf region are now egging President Trump to continue with the war. So what's exactly the plan? And would the Iranians really trust anyone at this point in time?
You know, I don't like to say this. We've won this. This war has been won.
Donald Trump says he won the war.
Will argue that this peace deal will work out with Iran.
You're talking about to end it? Well, I think we're going to end it. I can't tell you for sure. You know, I don't like to say this. We've won this. This war has been won.
He claims Iran's military capacity is obliterated.
We're crushing their missiles and drone stockpiles, destroying their defense industrial base. We've wiped out their Navy completely, their Air Force completely. We've wiped out a large percentage of their missiles. And the missile launchers, without the launchers, the missiles don't do any good. And we've knocked out probably close to 90% of the launchers, probably more than 90% of the missiles themselves. Between some they fired and more than they fired, we knocked out.
He goes one step ahead and pauses the strikes, extending the deadline to April 6th. But Iran, it seems, is not falling for the trap.
This unjust war of whims by the United States and Israel against the noble nation of Iran is the direct result of silence in the face of earlier manifestations of lawlessness and atrocity in occupied Palestine, Lebanon, and elsewhere. The United Nations and the core values it embodies, you all need to call out the aggressors and let them know that the community of states, the human collective conscience, hold them accountable for the abhorrent crimes they are committing against Iranians, to defend themselves against the brutal aggressors who know no boundary in perpetrating all sorts of crimes, a defense that shall persist as long as needed.
What US calls a pause, experts are calling it a strategic deception.